Namaste. So this video is made particularly for my students of BBA and BBIS, and in this video I am showing you how you can outline the essay that you read. For example, in the past few days, let's say for a week, we have been reading Lisa Davies' essay, Where Do We Stand, line by line, and we have been focusing on each paragraph. If you see carefully on the screen, I would like you to pay close attention to everything on the screen and look how it all looks when you try to summarize or outline your essay, right? You can see the whole essay. Now imagine that your note copy, the whiteboard I'm showing is like the page from a note copy. So you should be able to transform the essay in this kind of, let's say, diagrammatic summary or outline. Can you see what I've done here? I have a number of arrows you can see in the center. If you pay attention, I have a box where I write thesis statement para 4, and then in the box I write the language of space has distinctive accents, confusing umlauts that leaves a lot of room for misinterpretation. And then if you pay attention, I have the idea from culture to culture, then from group to group within a single country, and then even between the sexes. Okay, before I talk about the thesis statement, let me take you to the top of this whiteboard and show you something what I've done there. Okay, let me show you. So, for example, here let me turn on the screen my side so that I can see. For example, if you see here, I summarize paragraph 1. Lisa Davies portrays a dramatic scene which shows that when two individuals belonging to two cultures happen to interact, their interaction might lead to confusion and misunderstanding due to their different assumptions about the use of space while having public conversation, like at a cocktail party for diplomats or business people. So in paragraph 1, the writer sets the scene and hints at the issue, how confusion arises when two people from two cultures use space differently while having an interaction. Now, as you move to paragraph 2, the writer narrows down and more clearly repeats the problem. The essayist clearly reiterates that problem may result if two individuals use space differently while communicating. The American, for example, feels bullied Davis tells, while the Arab feels unaccountably chilled. So in paragraph 1, Lisa Davis just hints at the problem, whereas in paragraph 2, she clearly presents the problem. The American feels chilled, the American feels bullied, the Arab feels chilled. Now in paragraph 3, Lisa Davis argues that we each use space as a subtle code or language that we learn from our infancy. So paragraph 1, 2, and 3, they serve as the introduction to the essay. This is a problem solution essay. So in the first, second, and third paragraph, the writer or essayist Lisa Davis introduces her reader to the problem. And in the first paragraph, she introduces rhetorical situation. We know that the writer or speaker of this essay is an American. We also know that the primary audience of this essay is also an American, because she is writing this essay for the Americans to make them aware about how they should behave if they happen to participate in a multicultural setting. Then, after setting the context and introduction in para 1, 2, and 3, if you go to para 4, Lisa Davis in paragraph 4 presents the thesis statement. A thesis statement, as we have been discussing, is the central idea of the essay. This is the major argument where the writer makes central claim. So what I have done, the thesis statement has 3 ideas. One, I write from culture to culture, language of space differs. From group to group within a single country, the language of space differs. Even between the sexes, the language of space differs. And this difference leaves a lot of room for misinterpretation, the problem. Then what I do, first, second, third paragraph introduction, fourth paragraph thesis statement at the end of the introduction. From fifth paragraph, the essay has body paragraphs or discussion section, because from paragraph 6 up to paragraph, let's say almost up to paragraph 11, from paragraph 5 to paragraph 11, Lisa Davis discusses the nature of this problem. So what I do in paragraph 5, for example, I show how Lisa Davis supports this thesis statement that space use differs from culture to culture. In paragraph 5, she brings an example of Saudi Arabians who are high contact people. Then she brings an example of Americans who are low contact people. And then she quotes the idea of Sandra Snowdon to support her argument. And she shows how when Saudis approach Americans too close, Americans feel bad. Then I move on to paragraph 6 here, for example. And in paragraph 6, she shows another example of how space use differs even within a country from group to group. And we see the example of Japanese, how they behave when they are in the subways, and Japanese, how they behave when they are at home. Japanese at the subways don't mind eye contact, whereas Japanese at the offices maintain a very low contact. Now Americans, this example, Americans have low contact, and Americans prefer gazing, lingering gaze, and Japanese people who do not prefer being gazed at, the Japanese people feel as if they are under a searchlight when the Americans continuously look in the eyes of the Japanese people while having a discussion. Now, this is the difference, and the problem that brings is, you can see here, Americans might lose their business contract with the Japanese. Paragraph 6. Then we go to paragraph 7. Let's check where we have written 7. 5, 6. Then we have, where is paragraph 7? Let me search. 8 is 7. So in paragraph 7, what we read that, as you can see, in paragraph 7, we have the example of Edward Hall's concept of cultural continuum. And this example of Edward Hall's concept of cultural continuum supports the idea that the use of space differs from culture to culture. For example, Hall shows that there are high contact cultures like the Mediterranean and South American societies, where people have much eye contact, much touching and smiling, and they maintain just 1 foot distance when they have conversation in public space. Then we have low contact site, where we have Northern European cultures, where even a lingering gaze may be invasive. So we have the example of high contact, low contact, that support the idea that from culture to culture, space use differs. Then we have, in the middle, we have America, that we come to discuss in paragraph 8, where we read that Americans maintain about 18 inches distance. In the same paragraph 8, we also read about the British students who were told to stay closer while learning how to interact with the Middle Eastern people. And when the British students stayed closer to their Middle Eastern counterparts, the Middle Eastern people responded by saying that the British students were likable. Okay, then from paragraph 8, we move on to paragraph, again in paragraph 8 we have something else also. Let's check here. In paragraph 8 we read here, paragraph 8 also talks about this idea that the use of space differs even between sexes. For example, in paragraph 8 we also read how women use space. They like to stay close when they talk, whereas in paragraph 9 we read that men use space differently. They maintain a distance when they talk to another man. How men and women use space. Then we read the problem. If you place men closer in communication, they might feel irritating if they are made to stay too close. Paragraph 9, 8 and 9. Then we move to paragraph 10. Okay. In paragraph 10, we have the example of Soviet Union, and it shows the same, it proves the same point that from group to group within a single country, space use differs. For example, in Soviet Union, the Estonians have almost no contact, whereas Russians have very high contact. So Russians think that the low contact Estonians are cold, and the low contact Estonians feel that high contact Russians are pushy people, they always chase you. And then we go to paragraph 11 now. And in paragraph 11, we read example of how within America, the way people use space differs from group to group. For example, we have the example of Caucasian teacher who, while having a conversation with an Asian student, mistakenly thinks that the student is trying to hide something because the student is averting her eyes, not looking at the teacher out of respect. But the Caucasian teacher who thinks that direct eye contact is okay, he mistakenly thinks that the Asian student might be hiding something from him. So it also proves the idea that from group to group within a single country, space use may differ, and it may bring misinterpretation. Then we move to paragraph 12. From paragraph 1, 2, 3 serve as introduction, and paragraph 4 is the end of introduction, where we have the thesis statement. From paragraph 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I repeat, paragraph 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. These 7 paragraphs function as the major body paragraphs or discussion section, where Lisa Davis explains the nature of problem that results from space use. Then from paragraph 12, if you see, Lisa Davis explores the causes or origin of these problems up to paragraph 11, paragraph 5, paragraph 6, paragraph 7, paragraph 8, paragraph 9, paragraph 10, paragraph 11. She explores the nature of problem, and from paragraph 12 she starts searching, exploring the cause or origin of these problems. For example, if you see paragraph 12, she says that spatial behavior is automatic, and when someone breaks the rule, then people focus and they become alert, right? And she gives an example how when an American gets into an elevator, the first thing the American does is he takes into the corner and then looks on the ceiling. Then she gives an example how if a stranger gets into the elevator and stays closer to the American, smiles at the American, has eye contact at the American, and if the American doesn't find a reasonable justification for this behavior, then the American starts thinking that the stranger may be a weird person, the stranger may be unwanted fellow, and what the American does is that he might leave the elevator for safety reason. Then in paragraph 13, further Lisa Davis explores the cause of this problem, and she says that there may be a case of schizophrenia, psychological disorder, where a patient suffering from schizophrenia might either stay too close when they speak to someone, or they might stay too far when they speak to someone. An abnormal use of space caused by psychological problem with schizophrenia. In the same paragraph, Lisa Davis says that how people use space may also be because of self-protection. And she gives the example that in a study of the people in the prison cells, it was found that people having a criminal background, violent people, they needed much larger space while talking to people, whereas non-violent people preferred closer. And she gives the reason that violent people feel vulnerable if they happen to stay closer to another counterpart. So for the reason of self-protection, they prefer maintaining a larger distance. And Lisa Davis says that self-protection can be a reason guiding how people use space while having public conversation. Then we move to paragraph 14, where Lisa Davis says that why people use space the way they do may also rely on, for example, what sense people use to study, survey, and figure out their surrounding. For example, she gives example of Middle Eastern people, and she says that the people in the Middle East, they use the sense of smell and touch to gather information, to study the surrounding. Therefore, Middle Eastern people have to come closer to other people while having communication, because Middle Eastern people use the sense of smell and touch to figure out what's going on in the surrounding. On the contrary, Lisa Davis says Americans prefer backing up and maintain larger distance, because Americans depend on eyesight and they need visual information to study people around them. So Americans need to back off to maintain a larger distance to have a better view of the surrounding. Then in paragraph 15, Lisa Davis says that the origin of space use difference may also lie in standards of greeting distance in different cultures. And she gives the example of Americans and says that Americans shake hands and they talk at arm's length, let's say. On the contrary, the Arab people do a Hollywood style cheek to cheek social kissing. They might kiss the person they're talking to, and then there is another example of Japanese people. For example, Japanese people maintain at a distance of at least 2 feet while greeting one another, and they avoid touching one another when they greet. Then we move to paragraph 16, where we read that space use has a real impact. And for example, even Americans, they feel uncomfortable when they have to stay too close to a foreign person. For example, the American pilots who go to Egypt, for example, and when they see Egyptians holding hands and walking down the street, they might feel that that's not a good idea. But gradually they also learn to hold hands of the people when they walk down the street, and they understand that one might be holding hands just as to escort people to safety. And then we move to paragraph 17, where now Lisa Davis moves on to solution, and she recommends that if we give coaching to people and if people have enough time, they can learn to acculturate to foreign habits of contact. So she ends the essay with a positive note that we can overcome these problems if we train people, if we coach people, and if we give them time to be habituated. Then we have the last paragraph, para 18, where we have the conclusion, where Lisa Davis ends her essay by saying that personal space is not hard to learn. So you can see the essay ends in a very optimistic note by saying that it's not difficult to learn personal space use. The only thing is that we need to have coaching and we need to have time to learn about foreign cultures. Another remarkable thing I'd like to point to you is that if you see carefully in this essay, pay attention to the use of sources. For example, in paragraph 1, Lisa Davis brings a quotation from Peter Bechtold. He is an expert in space use in multicultural settings. Then if you see in paragraph 5, let's check where is paragraph 5. We have 5. Then yes, in paragraph 5, Lisa Davis brings a quotation from Sondra Sonodon. Then in paragraph 6, Lisa Davis brings a quotation from Mildred Reed Hall. Then in paragraph 7, let's check 5, 6, where do we have 7, 11, 5, 8, 7. In paragraph 7 also, Lisa Davis quotes from Edward Hall, an anthropologist. Then in paragraph 8, she does not quote. In paragraph 9, if you see, she does not quote. In paragraph 10, let's check paragraph 10, where is 10, 11, 10. In paragraph 10, does she quote? Yes, she quotes psychologist Robert Sommer. And in paragraph 11, let's check where is 11. Here we have 12. In paragraph 11, okay, 8, 7, 5, 11. In paragraph 11 also, does she quote? No, she does not quote. Paragraph 12. In paragraph 12, if you check paragraph 12, does she quote? No. Paragraph 13, She does not quote. Paragraph 14, yes, in paragraph 14, I guess she quotes Peter Bechtold. Paragraph 15, in paragraph 15, yes, she quotes Peter Bechtold in paragraph 15. Paragraph 16, she quotes psychologist John R. Ilo. Paragraph 17, she quotes Peter Bechtold. Paragraph 18, again she quotes Peter Bechtold. So do you see, she very often quotes Peter Bechtold, and she begins her essay by quoting Peter Bechtold in paragraph 1, and she ends her essay by quoting Peter Bechtold in paragraph 18. So one characteristic of academic writing is that writers make claims and then they borrow ideas from scholars to support their claim. That's what you see here. So what I want you is that I'm showing you this video to make you understand that when you read an essay, you should be able to convert the text in this kind of visual diagrammatic representation in your note copy. I understand that doing this is not easy. It requires repeated reading and effort, but understand that it is through effort, it is through hard work that you develop at the university, at the college. So I hope that you will be inspired by my hard work for you. It's almost 9:30 and I'm making these videos for you at home. I want you to watch these videos carefully, make notes, and then understand the lesson before you come to class. In class, I will talk about summarizing, and then I'll move on to interpretation, analysis, etc. in coming class. Once more, I'll focus before I close the video on, let me just zoom in. Okay, I want to focus on this thesis statement. As you can see, I have written the statement in the center of the whiteboard, and I want to show you visually also that thesis is at the center of your essay. Thesis is like the heart of your essay, and you can see how all discussion paragraphs, discussion section, or the body develops from the thesis statement. For example, I show you 3 branches of the thesis: from culture to culture, branch 1; from group to group within a single country, branch 2; even within the sexes, branch 3. Its pages differs and it has room for misinterpretation. And I showed you how paragraph 5, paragraph 6, paragraph 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, they support this idea, and how from paragraph 12 onwards, Lisa Davies explores the origin or cause of these problems. So I hope that I have helped you to learn. So learn from these things and try to follow what I teach you in these videos in coming essays. When you read other essays, do the same. I won't be teaching you these things every time in class. Thank you for watching. Please do leave comments and questions if you have any. Thank you.